The last mother, Imogen. If the survival of your entire species depended on one mother, one tiny bird, one nest, one successful egg, if she failed, her species would disappear forever. No hidden population, no second chance, no miracle waiting to happen, just extinction. It sounds impossible, but this is a true story. A story so extraordinary that even experienced conservationists once believed it couldn't have a happy ending. On a remote island, far out in the Pacific Ocean, lived one of the smallest birds in the world, the black robin. It wasn't colorful. It wasn't famous. Most people had never even heard its name. Yet by 1980, this tiny bird had become the center of one of the greatest wildlife rescue missions ever attempted. Scientists counted the entire remaining population, not hundreds, not dozens, only 5 birds were still alive. 5. And then they discovered something even more terrifying. Only one female could still produce chicks. Her name was Old Blue. Everything depended on her. Every breeding season, every egg, every decision. If Old Blue failed, the black robin would vanish from Earth forever. What happened next would challenge everything scientists thought they knew about saving a species. The black robin hadn't always lived on the edge of extinction. Long before humans arrived, these tiny forest birds thrived across New Zealand's Chatham Islands. Their soft songs echoed through dense native forests. They nested safely, raised their chicks, and survived for thousands of years. Then, everything changed. People arrived. Not just people, but animals that had never existed on these isolated islands before. Rats, cats, stoats, each one became a deadly new predator. The black robin had evolved without needing to fear mammals. Their nests sat low. Their eggs were exposed. Their chicks were easy targets. At the same time, forests were cleared. Food became scarce. Safe nesting places disappeared. Year after year, the population kept shrinking. One island after another fell silent. Finally, the last surviving black robins were forced onto a tiny rocky refuge called Little Menjare Island. It wasn't much larger than a neighborhood park. By the time conservationists realized how desperate the situation had become, there were only 5 birds left. And among those 5, only one mother still carried the future of an entire species. The situation looked hopeless. Many scientists believed the black robin had already crossed the point of no return. With so few birds remaining, every breeding season became a race against extinction. If even one egg failed, the consequences could be permanent. Conservation teams began watching Old Blue every single day. They monitored every nest, recorded every egg, protected every chick. But soon, they faced a heartbreaking reality. Old Blue simply wasn't laying enough eggs to rebuild the population. Time was running out. Then, a young conservation officer proposed an idea that had never been attempted on a species this close to extinction. What if they removed Old Blue's eggs before she could raise them? At first, it sounded completely wrong. Why would anyone take eggs away from the last mother on Earth? But the scientists knew something remarkable. If her eggs disappeared early, Old Blue's natural instinct would tell her to lay another clutch, and another, and another. Meanwhile, those precious eggs could be placed into the nests of another bird species, the Chatham Island tomtit, which would raise the chicks as their own. It was an extraordinary gamble. If it worked, the black robin might have a future. If it failed, humanity would witness the extinction of an entire species. The experiment began. Carefully, scientists removed Old Blue's first clutch of eggs and placed them inside the nests of Chatham Island tomtits. The foster parents accepted the eggs without hesitation. They incubated them, protected them, fed the chicks as if they were their own. Meanwhile, Old Blue returned to her empty nest. Instead of giving up, she did exactly what conservationists had hoped. She laid another clutch, then another, and another. Something extraordinary was happening. One tiny bird that would normally raise only a few chicks each season was suddenly producing far more offspring than anyone thought possible. Every successful hatchling felt like a miracle. 5 birds slowly became 6, then 8, then more. For the first time, people began believing the impossible might actually happen. But surviving infancy was only the beginning. Now, those young robins had to survive. In the wild, every new chick was treated like a priceless treasure. Scientists checked nests almost every day. If storms threatened, they acted. If predators appeared, they intervened. Every tiny life mattered. The young robins were carefully banded, allowing researchers to recognize each individual throughout its life. As the population slowly increased, the birds were moved to safer, predator-free islands, places where rats, cats, and stoats could no longer destroy their future. Each relocation was planned with extraordinary care. Every successful flight into a new forest represented another chance for the species to rebuild itself. Yet one fact never changed. Every bird flying through those forests owed its existence to one remarkable mother, Old Blue. Without her, there would have been no next generation, no recovery, no future. Year after year, the tiny population continued growing. The songs that had nearly disappeared returned to the forests. Young robins began building nests of their own, raising families without human assistance. The impossible was becoming reality. Today, the black robin still ranks among the world's rarest birds, but it is no longer standing at the edge of extinction. Its population has grown from only 5 birds to hundreds. Scientists still monitor the species carefully. Its genetic diversity remains limited because every living black robin descends from the same tiny group. Even so, the species survived, not by chance, but through decades of patience, science, and extraordinary dedication. A rescue, once considered impossible, became one of conservation's greatest victories. The next time you hear a tiny bird singing somewhere in the trees, remember this: size has never determined importance. The black robin weighs less than a golf ball, yet one small mother changed the future of an entire species. Old Blue never understood the headlines or the scientific papers that would one day celebrate her name. She simply followed the oldest instinct in nature. She kept building nests. She kept laying eggs. She never stopped trying again. Because of that determination, an entire species still exists today. Her story reminds us that extinction doesn't always have to be the final chapter. Sometimes, when science and compassion work together, nature is given a second chance, and perhaps that's the greatest mystery of all. How one ordinary bird living on a tiny island became the mother of every black robin alive today. If this incredible true story inspired you, tell us in the comments. Had you ever heard of Old Blue before today? And if you enjoy discovering the hidden mysteries, remarkable true stories, and extraordinary science behind birds and wildlife, subscribe to Winged Mysteries, because sometimes the greatest heroes in nature aren't the biggest or the strongest. They're the ones who simply refused to let hope disappear.